Hey there, my name is ARTFX and today I'm going to show you how to make Reese basses that sound a little something like this. Let's get to it. So here we are inside Ableton. I already made the patch. I'm not gonna do the entire thing from scratch, but instead I'm gonna show you what I've done. So let me turn off the effects right here. And I made a really long F note. So this is just a F3 note, just a really long one. And I went into Serum. And what I've done here is I basically made a patch. So what I've done, let me turn this all off. Let me go in here and let's turn these off as well. Like so. So I made a really long note. And then I made one saw wave here with 8 voices. And the detuning is up quite a bit. And I brought the phase position, the initial phase, I brought that all the way down. And the random phase is all the way up. So now we get this. Let me turn it on. So that's what we get. I also brought the width right here. So this one right here, I brought that down to 25. And this is very important. When you're making bass sounds in Serum, if you want to use the unison, then you definitely want to bring that width down in the global tab right here. Because otherwise it's going to be super wide. And that might sound nice initially to you. But when you sum the master to mono, it's going to disappear and it's going to sound really thin because you get a lot of phase cancellation. So by limiting the width amount here, you actually limit that. So it doesn't get so wide anymore. You can just use the unison, but only get a slight little bit of stereo width. So I've set this to 25. I think that's about right. So we now have 8 voices of a saw wave, and I decided to run that through a high-pass filter here. So I've used the high-pass cutoff to basically cut off everything. Basically, I used it here to cut off the sub-bass, so that we don't get any stereo sub anymore. And then I used the resonance to create a little boost here, a little peak around the low mids. Without the resonance, it sounds quite, quite thin in the low frequencies. And then with that resonant boost, you just get a little bit more bass. Sounds quite nice. Don't want to do too much, just a little bit. Just give it a slight boost. And then I added the sub here, and I turned on the direct out. So the sub is going directly to the output. It's bypassing the filter, and it's also bypassing the effects section. So now we get some bass again. Then I went into the effects section here, and the first thing I've done is I've taken a notch filter, and I've used LFO number 1 to control the frequency of the notch. So that creates some movement. It's not too big of a movement, but it's just nice to add a little movement with that. Then I added the soft clipper, just a little bit of distortion. Might want to bring it down a little bit more, but just give it a little bit of distortion. It doesn't have to be much. Then I added the flanger, and I've actually added the flanger, phaser, and the chorus, and I've basically done it all in the same amount, same kind of thing. So they all have a really low speed, as you can see. They're all slightly different from each other so that they don't move in the exact same speed. That helps to create some more interesting movement. The flanger and the phaser both have their phase knob turned down so that we don't get the so that basically the flanger and the phaser are not affecting the stereo field, but they're both just operating in mono. We still get stereo because there's a stereo signal running through it, but it's not adding even more phase differences, which would result in even more stereo width, because we don't want that. We already have a little bit of stereo width, and that's pretty much all that we want. So just a little bit of that. I can turn all three of them on. Just played around a little bit with these knobs. You can see the depth is down. I brought the delay time here down on the chorus. I've switched the filter here on the chorus to a high pass filter instead of a low pass filter, so that only the high frequencies get the chorus effect. Just, you know, play around with it a little bit. That is then running through this compressor, which is the multiband compressor. I've played around a little bit with the bends here, so if you click and drag on these bends, you can actually change them around, which is pretty helpful. You can change them around and get more high frequencies or get more mid frequencies, and then you can use the threshold to really dial in how much of it you want. And then I've used the makeup gain here to basically bring the gain back up. So after all that, we get this. So then I've taken a EQ8, and I think I did something more here. Oh yeah, I did something on the phaser. There's one more LFO, which is connected here to the phaser frequency, so that's just adding a little bit more movement, and it's on a slightly different speed as well from the other LFO, so that just helps giving even more movement. This is all random, by the way. There's not really any set value to these things. It's just I'm doing things by random just to create some movement. That's all I'm looking for. So I've then added a mid-side EQ here, and I've done that to basically cut off all the low frequencies in the side so that we don't get any stereo sub. And in fact, I'm not getting much stereo width in the low mids either. So that helps to make it even more mono compatible. And after that, it'll sound like this. So you can hear if I turn them on and off, the difference is very small because we pretty much already took care of that, but I do this just to make sure. Then I've added another notch filter, and I've automated the frequency and the resonance pretty randomly. These are not really, this is just me just clicking and just adding points. I didn't even listen to it, so I just really just randomly put in some dots and some automation just to again add more movement. Then after that, I've added a compressor to kind of compress it a little bit and bring the level back up, because if we add filtering, you're cutting out frequencies and you might get some volume spikes and some volume differences because you're doing the filtering, and by adding the compressor afterwards, it's actually just squashing it back down again, and it's evening out the volume, so that's really nice. I feel I do that a lot when I design Reese spaces, because otherwise they're moving all over the place in terms of volume. So with that done, you now have this. It's gonna be a little bit quiet for you guys right now, I know that, but don't worry. So now we are here, and now I can start making this patch. So I have a MIDI clip right here, so I can open it up, and you can see what it is. I have basically this kind of pattern. It's just all based on an F note here, and it's all based on the F Phrygian mode. So we have a G up here, so that's the higher pitch note. And if I go in here, you can see I have some pitch bends set up as well. So let's close this back down. Let's go to this one, and let's take our sample that we have. So I have this sample right here. I'm gonna drag this into this MIDI track. Now by default it'll create a simpler device. I want a sampler, so I'm gonna right click on the title bar and I'm gonna convert that to a sampler. So now we have this. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop the root note here to F2 so that it's in an F note, because this sample is actually in F as well. Now I'm gonna go to the, let's see, to the MIDI section, and I'm gonna take the pitch bend range and I'm going to turn that to 2 semitones. By default it's set to 5, I only need 2 for this particular patch. Next up, in the global tab, I'm going to increase the volume to about 0 dB, and I'm going to decrease this one, which is the volume to velocity. Basically this means if we turn this to 0, that it doesn't really matter what velocity notes we put in here, they're all going to be the same velocity. That's just what I want. I don't want any volume differences here. I'm also going to bring down the release time a bit, and let's bring up the attack time so that we don't get any clicks at the start of the note. And that's pretty much it for this right here. We're going to get back into this pretty soon, but first thing we have to do, switch the amount of voices to 1, because I want to have overlapping notes that glide between each other, and now we're going to set that glide up. So let's go to the pitch tab, right here, and let's go in here in this section at the bottom right, go to glide, turn it on onto glide, and let's bring the speed up to, yeah, well, whatever you want. So now we have this. And there's actually a sidechain going on as well if I turn that one off. So that's already starting to sound a bit more like it, right? Now let's do some more. Let's take a pitch envelope and let's add a full octave, so 12 semitones to the pitch envelope, and I'm going to shorten it a little bit. And now we have a little bit of a pitch envelope at the start of each note. It's very subtle, but it just helps to give that note a little bit more of an attack, and I can make this way more if I want. And you can hear what it's doing. So maybe even 24 semitones. But usually I'll just keep it at 12. I think that's enough. Next up is, let's see, next up is the filter. I'm gonna go and back down the filter frequency a little bit. So we get this. We kind of get a low-pass version of the signal now. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the filter envelope here. I'm gonna bring the amount up. I'm gonna take the sustain, bring that all the way up, and then I'm gonna take the attack and make it about 1.5 seconds, something like that. Maybe a little longer. Yeah, that's sounding nice. So now I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna turn on the shaper, and I'm gonna click this little triangle button, and that's gonna mean that now the signal is going into the filter, and after it's being filtered, it's gonna go into the shaper instead of the other way around. So now I can turn on the soft clipping here by bringing the amount up. And that's just gonna make the Reese a little bit louder and just gonna add a little bit of saturation. So if I bring it up all the way, it's really gonna be very noticeable. See, it's going to be like super distorted. I just want to mix that in, so about, I don't know, 30, 40, something like that. So now we have a pretty good Reese. What we could do now is set up a loop mode. So let's turn on looping here. So I'm going to set the sustain mode to the first looping mode. And then I'm going to click on link, which is going to link the start position of where the note is starting to play to the start position of the loop. That makes it just easier to find a nice looping section. So now I'm going to make it quite a bit smaller. And I now want to play it and see what the right speed for this loop would be. So to create a clean loop, you want to bring the crossfade up. So I'm going to bring that up a little bit. Don't want to bring it up too much. I want a loop that has a really clear looping character. So if we bring this up a lot, it's going to smoothen out the loop a lot as well. And it's going to sound as if it's almost not looping. It's just going to be like a really clean loop. But I actually like it when there's like a little bit of a, you know, a little bit of an indication that it's really looping. So if it jumps from like a low pass section to like a not low pass section, you're gonna hear that if the fade is really short. You're gonna hear that as sort of like a fast movement kind of thing, and I like that. So let's see. I think it's a little bit too slow right now, so we're gonna make the loop a bit smaller. A little better. Still a little bit too slow for my taste, so I'm gonna make it even smaller. That's starting to sound more like it. Maybe one tiny bit smaller. We can also turn off the snapping here, because we don't need it, so that gives us even more fine control. That sounds like it's looping in at a pretty good speed to me, and now I can move this around and find a section I like. And what also helps is by turning utility on your master to mono, so that you're now listening to the Reese in mono. Find a section that sounds good and crispy in mono, and when you then turn that utility off again, it's going to be stereo, and it usually is still going to be crispy. So that helps to find a section that sounds good in mono as well. That one sounds nice. So now I can turn off the link, and I can drag this start position out again, so that it doesn't start looping right away. Now it actually starts playing from this start position, and when it gets to the loop, it'll start looping. Might even make the loop even smaller. So now one final thing that we can do, it sounds pretty good right now. If I play this with the sidechain on and with the drums, it's already going to sound pretty good. It sounds a little bit too fast, I think, so let's slow it down a bit. And we're still listening in mono, by the way. But that's already sounding better. One thing we could do though, is in here we have an FM section, so we can use that to really make this sound a bit more gritty. So I'm gonna turn it on, and I'm gonna bring the sustain up all the way, because I don't want any plucky sound. I just want this to be FM'd pretty much the same amount all the way through. And now, because we've set the root note of this sampler to the key of F, and the sample is in the key of F as well, and there's no pitch bend in the sample itself, we can use the FM section here, the oscillator section, to create some more grit, and it'll be in tune. So I can bring up the volume here. And you can hear what it's doing, right? Really add some more grit, and we can change this the coarse tuning of it. And that'll change the sound of it. So if I bring it up, for instance, it becomes clear what it's doing. See, so it gets high pitched. I'm gonna leave it at 1, and let's try it out with a triangle wave instead. I like the sound of that. So let's try adding a little bit of compression here. So now what I can do is I can take EQ 8 and I can do one final stage of mid-side EQ. So let's switch it to the side channel, create a high pass, and just high pass those sides a bit. So now the bass is going to be perfectly mono. And now with the drums, it's going to sound like this. So there you have it. That's how you make pretty heavy Reese basses that are perfectly mono compatible. I hope you learned something today. If you did, then please subscribe to this channel. That would mean a lot if you would do. And if you do, then please leave a like on this video as well. And if you could, then leave a comment below and let me know what you want me to do next in one of the upcoming videos. I'm going to be doing a lot more sound design videos, so if you have any requests or any ideas, then feel free to let me know what you want me to do. Other than that, if you want to be a member of my Discord community, you can find the invite link below this video in the description. In my Discord server, you can ask your questions, you can ask for feedback on your music, and just, you know, talk to like-minded people about music production, about drum and bass, and, you know, that's just a great place to be. It's just a great, you know, place to talk to other people. Other than that, I'm going to be doing a live stream upcoming Friday, 8 p.m. Central European time, so if you want to see that, then tune in upcoming Friday. And other than that, I hope to see you back soon. Peace.